Likewise. Likewise.
Right. Hi, Simon. So yeah, go right ahead. Ryan, you have the first question.
Yeah, I got a pretty silly question. If Johnny Cage was in the movie, I'm not sure if he's in the movie. Who would you cast as Johnny Cage? Who would be your dream casting?
I have no idea.
And there was some discussion before. We thought maybe like Tom Cruise, or I thought Timothy Olyphant would maybe be fun, just because they could pull off kind of like the cheesiness of Johnny.
Johnny Cage is a really tricky character.
I agree.
Obviously, let me try and add a bit more to that question, so it doesn't just like I don't know. So obviously Mortal Kombat has comedy threaded through it. It's one of its sort of fundamentals as we sort of studied the fundamental DNA that was in Mortal Kombat that had to be preserved and respected, right? So the levity and the comedy within it is really important. But that is supplied by Kano in this film.
I see.
So one thing that, because no one's ever asked me a question like that.
I apologize.
No, it's great. It's a great question. I appreciate your blunt directness, Ryan. It's great. It's got you where you are today. What I looked at and what we all looked at was what is it that Johnny Cage provides, and it was, that was one of his really key ingredients. He's obviously a much beloved character, and it was pretty much because we wanted to make sure that every character was brought about in the best way possible. And he's a really tricky, very, very, because you can wander off in the wrong direction so easily, I think. It takes quite a bit of analysing. So we knew that the comedy needed to be supplied, and Kano does that. And Josh Lawson, who plays Kano, does an incredible job. And he's a very gifted improv comedian. Well, he's not even a comedian, but he brings this sort of great comedy to the role that feels very real and authentic, but he provides that. So in looking for who that person would be, obviously comedic ability is really important, but there's a lot of cheese that comes with him as well. So we've got to be a bit,
yeah, that's for sure.
He's got to be careful. So if people like the movie and people want another one, it's not for me to decide. It's for people like you to decide whether you want another film or not. Then maybe we'll crack that and we'll give you a call and you can give us your ideas.
Yeah. Just email me. My inbox is open, and if you have any thoughts or just like questions, like I'm happy to answer them. So
very nice.
That.
No worries. Who's next?
All right, Simon, good to meet you. My question is: are there any characters that you really wanted in the film, but due to time, budget, or story, you had to cut them? Maybe like Johnny Cage.
David, I liked your interview with Ludi, by the way.
Thank you.
I watched that. Ludi's such a fabulous fellow. When I saw that he was in it, I just wanted to watch it because I wanted to see what he had to say. He's great. That is him, by the way. He is the most genuine, lovely guy you could ever meet. He's
so nice.
He's this perfect specimen of a human. Like he just floats into the room. He's just extraordinary to look at. I mean, but then when you get to meet him, and he's kind of a bit weird and spiritual and kind of locks eyes with you when you talk to him. And then when you get to know him, he's the most wonderful, genuine, down to earth, really funny. Anyway, I'm off-roading. So no, I didn't know, not really. Okay. There was enough characters in there to deal with that that needed managing and needed a lot of attention. So I didn't really bring in the process of sort of pitching on the movie and getting it, I didn't bring a set of characters that I wanted to put in it. I was kind of happy where the studio had it. And, you know, we recalibrated along the way. Certain characters, kind of just trying to think back to early days. Everyone pretty much stayed pretty much where they were. There were discussions, but nothing ever really sort of happened. But no, I didn't come along and say, oh, this character needs to be in it or this. But there's certainly plenty of characters to work from. I mean, there's so many. But we had enough to go with. You know.
Awesome. And just like Ryan, if you need any help with casting Johnny Cage, Ryan and I can help you. Easy.
Yeah, we could be in like a shared thread or something.
Yeah.
Technology has presented itself.
I'll share it with all of you guys.
That sounds great. That sounds like a great.
You won't miss out. All right.
Simon, just want to say, first of all, great to meet you. Really looking forward to the film. The trailer was awesome. The sneak peek was pretty crazy. And actually, I wanted to ask a question specifically about the sneak peek, because from what we saw, I can already tell just within the first 13 minutes of the film, there's this heavy focus on the fight choreography. And I'm just wondering what the process is like behind the scenes, what kind of films were looked to as inspiration for the action in the movie.
I didn't really look to any other films. It's really not how my brain works. Obviously I watch a lot of films, but I don't cite other films to use as inspiration. It's more of a tonal and sort of atmospheric feeling I talk about, rather than saying, I want it to look like this or this. But so in pursuit of making something as original as possible, to make it, to create its own sort of its own feel. But certainly the stunt team and Chan, the fight choreographer, and Kyle, you guys should interview those guys, by the way. You should interview Kyle Gardner and Chan Griffin. Those guys are incredible. They're the brains behind the operation. So those guys, I just talked stylistically to those guys. I said, in a sense that I wanted them to realize that I wasn't after what they usually get asked. And what they're usually asked, well, they're usually not given. I knew that the films had, the fights had a great deal of real estate in the film. So there's a lot of fighting in the film, right? But as you guys saw in the opening, that's an example of where the character needed to be built and story needed to be told through the fighting. So in that, what was really important was I wanted the sort of birth of Scorpion to be realized, certainly the kunai blade and why he had that and where that came from. That had never been established anywhere. So we felt like, oh, okay, we can sort of establish something here and build on the sort of shoulders of what NetherRealm and Ed Boon and those guys have done. So that was stuff like that, and ideas like the Blood Blade that you guys have seen in the trailer. They're the sort of ideas I said to them, look, we need a lot of ideas and we need a lot of smart, fun things that are in fights that move the narrative forward and move the characters and build characters. That those things are the things I'm going to be looking at. And also stylistically, I need, and this is what I was saying to Carl, I need the fights to feel like they are part of the atmospheric feeling of the tone of the film. So I couldn't have story, fight, story, fight. It was all one thing that plaited together. And so this was the sort of conversations we had. And the way those guys work is they go off and with this amazing stunt team, and and one day I'm going to release I want to release the actual fight vises that they did. So they make these fight vises. You guys probably know all this, but they shoot the fight using their stunt team as the characters, and they shoot them on. They got pretty good gear, and they shoot them with cardboard boxes instead of houses, and and things like that, and instead of trees, but they shoot them all as their sketch. And so what I would sort of, I briefed, but I said to those guys, look, you just guys have at it. Just enjoy it and know that the things that I'm going to be looking at are more to do with that shot there cannot be done in the way stylistically this film is. So I was like more of that sort of thing. But when they would bring me these wild, crazy fight visits, and things like when the blade goes into the tree and then it cuts in here. They're all the ideas they would put in this stuff. They're all them. It's all them. They're brilliant, genius, incredible talent, right? And so then we would just talk style and talk substance, and sometimes there was a whole fight sequence in between the two fights that we had to get rid of because it was just too much. So they tended to sort of over-deliver the stunt guys. And so it was a lovely process of like, oh, Kyle and Chan are going to bring you a new fight viz for this fight. The X fight is going to will come in on Friday. So we'd all gather around and we'd watch it. And it was so much fun because my job as the director is to bring everyone together and have communication flow really effortlessly, and so that everyone knows that the ideas are all welcome. It's how I make it seem like I know what I'm doing. And then I just borrow ideas and everyone just feels like they can contribute. So a lot of the fight choreography and what those guys delivered is because they are so brilliant at their job. And then people would like Nathan Marshall, who's the production designer, he would get an idea based on like, oh, what if you did that? We could do this. And it was just this wonderful collaborative process. So those guys would start those and then we would sort of add, and Chris Godfrey, the VFX supervisor, because there's VFX and real fighting all going on at once every time. Sometimes the guys would bring something and be like, and then he's going to do this. And, you've seen the kind of ice wall in the trailer, and they would be delivered in these fight visits, and Chris Godfrey, the VFX director, would look at it and go, are you serious? You really want me to do that? So it was this great collaborative process of just like all building on each other to try and build this kind of cohesive, singular feeling. It was great.
It's amazing. Really looking forward to it.
Michelle or Mia?
Mia.
All right.
Mia.
Hi, Simon. Nice to meet you. I just wanted to say during the preview, one of the elements that I really liked was seeing the emphasis on the language and inevitably the cultural differences between the characters. How important was it to you to have such a diverse cast and crew on the film? And was that something that you had any hand in?
Yes, I had a large hand in that. Very, very important, simply because it's the right thing to do. And it made it authentic. It made it richer, more interesting, more beautiful, more Mortal Kombat. And so the pursuit was to do what's right for Mortal Kombat and do what's right for humanity, basically. I don't want to let's not get carried away, but it's just kind of the right thing to do, right? So, and the studio were in the same, it was just everyone was of the same opinion. It was not even it just happened. It was just not even a big deal. It was just like, this is the right thing to do. This is what we're doing. So from the moment where I put Joe Taslim up on the pinup board, who was going, the first person I knew I wanted, it was just a lot of discussion was about getting that the balance of that right. And for instance, there's a lot of subtitles in the opening of the film. We had a huge conversation about, all right, so we've got a guy who's Chinese, and Joe is from the Chinese part of Indonesia. So even we went into sort of, I gave it over to the Warner Brothers diversity team and said, look, I want Joe, but Joe is Indonesian. So I want to make sure this is okay. And if it's not okay, it's not for the white Australian guy to decide. It's for you guys to decide. So I'm really hoping it's okay, but can you please tell me? And I will go, if Joe's not right, that's fine. Because it had to be right. It had to be the fundamental sort of thing going in. And they were like, no, that's fine. That's all good. That's culturally right. That's okay. So they sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So the subtitles in the film. So there's a big discussion, and when Hiroyuki came on board, he wanted to make sure. So we had a Chinese guy and we had a Japanese guy needed to talk to each other. Well, how are we going to do that? So that's why that line went in, which was Hiroyuki's idea, which is, I may not understand your words, but I know I'm going to kill you. That was straight out of Hiro, right? He said, what about this line? What if, because both Joe and myself and Hiro sort of got together, and it was one of the early conversations, which was, all right, this is matter. We're not changing. No one's speaking English. That's not going to happen. So how are we going to work through this? Because that's what it ultimately is. It just makes it more interesting and makes it more authentic, right? So Hiro had that idea. I was like, great, love it. So that was in from day, from the moment we started, once everyone was cast and got to Australia. And then Joe said, oh, I might know a few words. We said, yeah, that's okay. You can say a word or two, like, where is Hanzo? So there's a couple of things that we but it was a big discussion about that sort of stuff. And other things come up in the film that pay off to the setup. And there's a couple of things that just sound so fucking awesome in Japanese. We sort of made jokes like, couldn't have it that, in Netherrealm, they've got great language classes. So all of a sudden he can speak English. We sort of, we knew that that's fundamentally that Scorpion, and he just sounds, it was a constant debate, really, constant discussion about how do we make this authentic. So it matters.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Simon, I think we have you for about 1.5 minutes. So if anyone has any final questions.
I don't think Michelle's asked a question.
Michelle is an observer.
Oh, observer.
I think you answered part of my question when Mia asked, so I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Well, what are we going to do with our last 60 seconds? Okay, so Mia, ask again, because it's all blokes in this room. So why don't we give it over to you?
Let's see. Honestly, I just love hearing about a favorite moment while filming was going on, something that's memorable for you that you'd like to share.
God, I want to.
No spoilers.
Okay, here's a funny little story that. Actually, I can't tell that because that gives away a story thing. I think what was lovely, and this is a slightly bland answer, but it was a fantastic group of cast and crew. Everyone got on really well. It was a really great group of people that all felt really lucky to be part of this, myself included. And it was, we went out to the desert several times for different locations. And it sort of gave us this sort of, we're off into the wilderness together. And it was there was this one scene that comes soon after the shot of Liu Kang coming out of the sun. And it happens up there in just after that, where there was this sort of wonderful, it was this beautiful afternoon evening that we needed at sort of magic hour. And we worked out, and PJ Voten, who's one of the two ADs on the film, who did Fury Road and is an incredible AD. He worked out this methodology about how we were going to shoot everything so it sort of all matched, the light all matched. It's quite tricky to do when you're trying to do quite a lot in a very short amount of time. But given the sort of incredible brain that PJ is, he came up with this wonderful methodology that sort of meant we had to sort of hustle, shoot something, and then stop, and then hustle and shoot something, and we did this thing. And we all got together. It was this big sort of, and it was just a great moment where we all just nailed it. And the performances were really good, and it was just so I felt very lucky to be in everyone was just loving also just being immersed in Mortal Kombat. So, the crew and a couple of the guys, everyone just loved that aspect of it. And felt really lucky to be there, and kind of we all enjoyed the process because of how privileged we all felt to be there, and we didn't want to fuck it up. So, maybe after the film comes out, we'll chat again, and I can tell you loads of detailed stories.
I'll go for that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Simon.
And thank you guys. I just wanted to say thanks to you guys for really engaging with the film and really appreciating kind of the things we've really tried to do and give you guys. And it's been great, the response, and I know a lot of that's to do with what you guys do, and you know, it's much appreciated. Just so you know, a lot of discussions, I don't like to sort of put myself in the front and center, so you're not going to see pictures of me reacting to stuff, but just know it's really appreciated. And a lot of discussions went on while we're still editing about the way you guys were reacting and talking, and it really meant a lot. So it was not lost on us, and still continues to be not lost on us. So thanks.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the
Thank
work
you.
you're doing on the
Thank you.
film. We can't wait to see it.
Thanks for the
great.
time.
No worries, guys.
Thank you.
See you later.